Welcome to Fusion Grain Cooking. In today's show, we're talking about spelt. We're going to be doing a wonderful spelt salad, spelt bread, and rosemary flatbread, and a savory and sweet spelt scone. So don't go away, spelt is going to become your favorite grain too. Welcome to Fusion Grain Cooking, where we take the foods you eat every day and fuse them with grains to make food that not only tastes great, but is good for you also. Today we're talking about one of my favorite grains, spelt. I love this grain. It's a very old grain, and it's actually one of the few non-hybrid grains, meaning that this is exactly the same way it was grown thousands and thousands of years ago. Spelt has 60% more protein than wheat. Is packed with vitamins and minerals and fiber. It's an excellent substitute for wheat. In fact, they found a lot of people allergic to wheat can eat spelt. A fabulous grain, and you're going to love what we do with spelt in today's show. The first thing we're going to do today in this fabulous spelt class is we're going to make bread. Spelt bread has become extremely popular nowadays, and one of the reasons it's so popular is that the majority of people that are allergic to wheat or can't handle wheat products can handle spelt. The reason being is spelt is a non-hybrid grain. It's a pure grain that's been grown, as you remember, for centuries, thousands of years actually. In fact, it's the oldest recorded grain in history. So it's a non-hybrid grain. Like most of the wheats today are hybrid grains, and our bodies have a hard time adapting to that. So a lot of people can handle spelt. So we're going to make a spelt bread today. So to make our bread, we have ground, as always, our spelt in our mill. And it has a bread grind on it. We just set it on the bread grind, and we ground it in the mill to get this beautiful spelt flour. So we have our spelt flour here, and this is going to be a potato spelt bread. Right here I have some potatoes, three potatoes that I have cooked with a little bit of water until they were tender. And now I'm just going to mash these up in the water that I cooked them in. And then we're going to use that water, that potato water and the potatoes to make the bread. Now I just want to tell you something about potatoes when you're making bread. It's easy sometimes to shortcut and want to use instant potato or something, and it's going to be okay. But if you really want a fabulous potato bread, use fresh potatoes. It certainly makes a difference. Okay, we have this beautiful pureed potato, and it's kind of hot, but that's okay. And we're going to pour that into there. See, there's just a few little chunks in there, but those are going to need their way out. And if not, it will just give the bread a little bit of extra character. There we go. Now I have a cup of an Alaskan sourdough starter, and I love to put sourdough starters in the bread. It's not going to give it a real sourdough flavor, but it's going to really add to the texture of the bread. And then I'm going to add a little bit of sweetener, and the sweetener we're going to add today is all natural, and it's high in inulin, which really helps with the rise of the bread. So we're going to put some of this in our bread too. And you can put as little or as much as you want, depending on how sweet you want it. And as always, a little bit of salt, and we're using that wonderful real salt, so it's a good salt. A little bit of salt in there. We're going to add just a little bit more water to that. Oh, and we need to add our oil, absolutely. So we're going to put a little bit of extra virgin olive oil in here. You could use butter if you wanted, or canola oil, but we're putting a little bit of olive oil in there. Now we're going to scoop in our flour. And we're going to make this 100% spelt. If you wanted to add a couple of cups of white flour to it, you could do that also. And if you are allergic to white flour, and that's the issue, you know, to make your bread a little bit lighter, that's what the white flour does. They have a spelt white flour that you can buy at the health food stores that works just like white flour, but it's made from spelt. And then on the very top, as we always do when we make our bread, we add our yeast right on the top. So we're going to add that right on the top. Beautiful. And then we're going to turn our mixer on. Just kind of pulse it to get it going. Now the mixer does come with a lid, But I don't use the lid when I'm teaching, just so you can see what's going on inside of the bowl. Then we're going to add a little bit more flour until it cleans the sides. Now, if you wanted to add like a cup of flour, of white flour, just to pick it up a little bit, this would be the time to add the white flour. Now, I want to show you a trick, something that sometimes we do, and we don't mean to do it. We add too much flour. What do you do when you add too much flour? You have a little bit of water here, so you just drizzle a little bit of water over the top, and that's going to pull it together. And then if you add too much water, add a little more flour. You're going to have to stop eventually, though, I promise. See how it's cleaning the sides? Perfect. Now we're going to let that go for 6 minutes. After 6 minutes, we're going to pull it out, form our loaves and our flatbread that we're going to do today. Okay, the next step is we're taking our wonderful bread dough. Now look at this dough. It's just beautiful, soft and silky, absolutely beautiful. And it's almost 100% spelt. I want to mention something about when you're mixing it in the bowl. When you put potatoes in the bread, sometimes when it's pulled away from the sides, you come back a minute later and it's sticky again. That's quite all right. That's just the starch in the potatoes. Just add a little bit more flour and you'll be perfectly fine. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to divide this into a couple loaves. Now, what I have here is my 2 favorite loaf pans. This is my favorite size of pan to bake in. It's narrow, and the reason we like it narrow is so you have support to hold the loaf of bread. So it's a nice narrow pan, and this pan I know holds 2 pounds of dough. And that's really important that you know the amount of dough in the pan. If you put a less amount, it doesn't rise very big. If you put too much in there, then it gets too big and it doesn't bake well. So 2 pounds, how do you know? I have a little kitchen scale right here. Just a simple little kitchen scale that is going to weigh out 2 pounds of dough. We're going to set it down here, put a bowl on it, that way it'll get the tear, and we're going to turn it on, and then we're going to weigh out our dough. We want 2 pounds of dough. So we're going to cut this up, put it in, and add dough until we get 2 pounds. We need just a little bit more in there. There you go. If it's a tiny bit more than 2 pounds, it's okay, but you want as close to 2 pounds as you can go. So here's 1 2-pound loaf, and then let's do another one. There we go. Perfect. 2 pounds. Okay, we're going to set this piece aside because we're going to do something else with it in a minute. So now we're going to take and we're going to form our loaf to go on our 2-pound loaf. Now, I don't put any flour on. I always use a little bit oil when I do it because the more flour you use, the stiffer the bread is going to be. So now we're just forming our loaves, and I'm just folding it all in. And then we're going to get the air out of it, and frustrations if you have any at the moment. And we're going to take a little bit of oil, spray our pan. Even though they're non-stick pans, you need to spray the pan so the bread will come out. We're going to put the bread in the seam side down, and we're going to do the same thing with this loaf. Just a couple little pats on there. You're not going to hurt the dough by doing that. Okay, and then we're going to place this in the pan. There we go. Now we want to let these rise until they're double in size. How do you know what double in size is? Very simple. This is double in size. When it's about that big, you know your bread is doubled in size and it's ready to go in the oven. So we're going to set this in a warm place, let it rise until it's double, and then we're going to bake it in a 400-degree oven for about 20 to 25 minutes. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a flatbread, a potato flatbread. So we're going to put a little bit of oil on the counter here, and we're going to take this and we're just going to press this out until it's a nice sized circle. And we have a piece of parchment paper here, and we're going to put the parchment paper on our pizza paddle so we can get it into the oven easily. I'm going to set that on there on the paper. There you go. Now, if you would like, you can let this rise a little bit until it gets thicker and then do the next step. Or if you're hungry, you can do it right away. And so what you're going to do is you're going to take your fingers and push little holes in the dough. That's going to catch the olive oil. Now we're going to take olive oil, extra virgin, and we're going to fill up these little holes. Now, if you're a selfish olive oil person, this recipe isn't for you. And as what's going to happen, as it bakes, that olive oil is going to bake into the bread and give the bread that absolutely wonderful flavor. And then we're going to sprinkle some rosemary on the top of that. And a little bit of kosher salt. And you want to make sure it's kosher salt. If you don't use kosher salt, the other salt will just disappear in there, and it will be salty, but you won't get that wonderful texture from the kosher salt. Okay, there we go. We're going to put this in an oven at 500 degrees on a pizza stone, and it's going to bake in probably 7 to 8 minutes. It will be done. And when we come back, 100% whole grain scones. Now it's time for the Chef Brad tip of the day. Before we start making these wonderful scones, I just want to talk just for a moment about the wonders of spelt flour as far as it goes to baking non-yeasted bread. Spelt is a wonderful alternative to white flour and to wheat. It just reacts so well. It bakes up lighter and nicer. And anytime you're doing something like a cookie or a brownie or scones or biscuits, spelt is a great alternative. It has a wonderful nutty flavor. It's lighter than wheat flour when you grind it. In fact, when you grind it in the mill, because it's such a hard grain, it grinds up a lot lighter. So it's just the perfect move over. Put the white flour out of the way and bring the spelt flour in, and you're going to have a lot of fun baking with it. And you're going to see today when we do these wonderful scones how wonderful it really does work. We're going to do 2 scones. I wanted to do a sweet and a savory with pretty much the basic same recipe. We're just going to change a few ingredients. And I love working like that, kind of giving you formulas so you can take the formula and go and create wonderful foods on your own. For the scones, we have our bowl right here. For the sweet one, we have our bowl right here with a little bit of spelt flour in it, about 3.5 cups. And to the spelt flour, we're going to add 2 or 3 spoons of sugar and our baking powder, and a nice tablespoon of baking powder, and a little bit of salt. And we're just going to mix this up. And once we mix this up, and scones are so easy to do, I always wonder why I don't do it more often when I make them, because they're so easy to do. And then to this is going to be a ginger scone. We have these wonderful little crystallized pieces of ginger, and we're going to drop those in there. And the crystallized ginger has been crystallized in pure cane sugar, and so it's just going to have a wonderful kind of mild gingery taste to it. Okay, and then to that we have some sweet cream. And we're going to mix the sweet cream over this, and we're going to add cream and mix it. And then if we need to add a little bit more, we can add a little bit more. But we want kind of a biscuit texture. We don't want it to be too dry or too gooey. Okay, it looks like we need a little bit more cream in there. Mix that up. Now, I wouldn't make a whole wheat scone because they tend to be dry and heavy. But with spelt, they're not going to be dry like that. I'm going to add the rest of the cream to that. Mix that in there. There we go. And that's about right. We want it still a little bit of moisture in there. That's great. So we're going to set this off to the side, and we're going to mix the savory one. So we're going to do the same process. Our flour, a little bit less sugar in this one because it's a savory one. Kosher salt, and then our baking powder. And then to this one, we're going to add some chives and some cheddar cheese. And we're going to mix this all together. And then for this one, instead of cream, we're going to add buttermilk. And buttermilk is low in fat, so these are really going to be healthy on top of tasting good. They're going to be healthy for you too. So we're going to mix that up in there, adding more buttermilk as you need it. Buttermilk is great to add to baked goods. Adds a nice tangy flavor to it that I love. A little more buttermilk. We'll just use the rest of it on there. It'll be perfect. Beautiful. Okay, now this is just about right, and then we're going to dump this out onto the counter. Perfect. We're going to set this off to the side now. Now we're going to take some flour, some whole grain spelt flour, and we're going to put this on the counter. And we're going to take our scone and dump it out onto that. Okay, then we're just going to you want to knead this just a little bit more. Knead a little bit of that flour into it, kind of like you would if you were doing a biscuit. Kind of knead that around a little bit. You don't want to put too much flour in there. Okay, and then we're going to turn it over, and then we're going to pat it out. Oh, and I can see the ginger in there. It looks great. Beautiful. Now to that, we're going to take our little cutter right here, and we're going to cut it across, and we're going to make little wedges that we're going to bake. And I like to do the wedges, but you could do circles, you could do anything you wanted. But wedges are really fun. Okay, and then we have a pan here, and we're going to take these wedges and we're going to put them right on the pan. So we're going to lift these up and just set them right on the pan, and we're going to space them, put a little bit of space in between each one. Beautiful. And if they stick a little bit, just use your little lifter and lift them right up and put them right on the pan. They're going to grill perfectly, so you want to leave a tiny bit of space around them. And now we're going to do the savory one. The same thing. We're going to put flour on here. And you notice that batter is a little moist, so we put a little bit more flour down for this one. And we're going to dump this onto that. That's just lovely. And we're going to take this and we're just going to knead this just a little bit. And if it needs a little more flour, that's quite all right. We haven't done anything wrong. It's just going to be lighter. Remember, the less flour you put in, that applies for almost all baked goods, the better they're going to be. Oh, that's just looking fabulous. A little more flour on there, and it's going to be wonderful. Beautiful. And that looks just about perfect now. So we're going to turn this over, and we're going to pat this out to make our scones. And it's so tender, it pats out really easily. And I love the little green flecks in there. This is going to be a fabulous scone. Now this one, I have a little cutter here, and I'm going to make little crinkle cut scones on this. So we're going to take and cut the scones. And they could be smaller if you're doing a little party where you just want little taster ones, or you can make them bigger if you're feeding the boys on the farm. There you go. And we're going to take these and place them right on, and they're going to be a little sticky, but that's okay. Sometimes we worry when things are too sticky, but sticky is a good sign because they're going to be lighter and moister. And then you can take it, and because the dough is so sticky, you can just take and re-roll the other dough and make some more. We have a little bit of melted butter here, and we're just going to take this and brush this on the top of each one. And on the sweet ones, if you wanted to sprinkle a little bit of sugar on the top, you could do that also. We're going to bake them in a 375-degree oven for 12 to 15 minutes or until they are beautiful golden brown. And when we come back, we're going to be preparing a fabulous spelt salad. Welcome back. Now we're going to take that wonderful spelt, the whole grain, and prepare a salad. This is what the whole grain looks like. It's wonderful. We've cooked it. It cooks like brown rice. So if you cook it on the stovetop, it's going to be about 45 minutes. If you cook it in a pressure cooker, about 12 to 15 minutes. It's absolutely beautiful. Golden, and you know, it has the most wonderful, chewy, texture. I absolutely love eating spelt. And in a salad, it is sensational. So we have our bowl here. We're just going to mix some fun ingredients together. We have an apple here, and we're going to cut the apple. And I take the stem out, and that's it. And then I'm just going to cut the apple, core and all, in little pieces. The core is some of the best fiber in the apple. So we're going to add that. In fact, my family thinks I'm kind of weird because when I eat an apple, it's all gone, the whole thing. And it's really great when you're traveling because you don't have to find a place to throw the apple core. You just eat it. So there's our apple, seeds and all in there. And one thing I've noticed over the years in doing this, that I've never had anyone comment on a seed in their salad. They've never made mention of that. So we have our apple in there. We have some fresh strawberries, some fresh berries. And you know, we use that ginger in our scones. And how often do you get an ingredient for just one use? You buy something and you only use it once. So I thought, you know, we're going to use that crystallized ginger in the salad too. That way you get double use out of your purchase. And then we have some pistachio nuts. And of course, the beautiful spelt grain. And we're going to toss this together. Such simple ingredients, but what a wonderful salad it's going to make. And I just think you can never have enough spelt in there. So we're going to use all that bowl of spelt. And we're going to mix it up. And then for the dressing, we're just going to do something extremely simple for the dressing today. A little bit of pure maple syrup. And we're going to drizzle the pure maple syrup over the top. And then we're going to stir it up a little bit. And then we're going to use some of that wonderful omega-3 fish swirl. It's made with fish oil, and it's a wonderful, oh, you could almost put a straw in here and drink it out of the bottle. It's a lemon, and it's just so pretty. And you can't think of fish when you think about this because it has nothing to do with fish, only the nutritional part. So now we're going to stir this up. Oh, it's so pretty already with that little bit of sweetness from the pure maple syrup. It's going to be absolutely fabulous. Oh, I just love the smell of that, and it's so pretty. And then over the top of this, we're going to garnish it with a wonderful apricot cheese. And this is just a nice cheese that's been made with apricots in it. So it's just going to have a wonderful, beautiful flavor. Simple. Grain salads are simple and so nutritious. That's the one thing I love about grains is how simple they are to add. Remember, we always talk about the simple, helpful hint about having those grains already in the refrigerator cooked, and then it's a simple add-in to salads. And you can take any kind of fruits and vegetables and mix them together with grains and have a fabulous salad. And dressings can be as simple as fish oil and maple syrup, and it's going to be great. The bread is out of the oven, and isn't it beautiful? This is 100% almost spelt bread. We did put a little bit of white flour in there, but the majority of it was that fresh ground spelt flour. Isn't that beautiful? And then our rosemary flatbread made with the same dough. This would be perfect for slicing and making a huge sandwich, then cutting it like a pizza. Absolutely fabulous. And then look at our beautiful salad here with the cheese on the top of it. Fabulous. And the scones. Absolutely wonderful. I wish with all my heart that you could be here to taste them. These scones are fabulous. These ginger ones, I think, are my very favorite. Oh, they're just light and buttery, and the ginger is perfect. They're absolutely fabulous. And I've been dying to taste this salad with the scone. Oh my goodness. Too good for words. I love spelt. Spelt, a fabulous grain. I hope your next adventure in the kitchen is using spelt. It is fabulous, and whatever you do with it, you're going to love it. Thanks for tuning in to Fusion Grain Cooking with Chef Brad.